Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. We've got a great follow up to a topic we previously covered, so let's learn more. Those of you who don't believe in ghosts or paranormal, what experience did you have that changed your mind? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. When I was 11, my great grandmother, who I was very close to, passed away. It was my first experience with loss other than a pet, and I was completely devastated. I became extremely depressed. One night I woke up to see her standing by my bed. She was telling me that she was okay and that I should be happy for her because she was no longer in pain. She had cancer. I know we talked for a while, but I don't remember all of the conversation, just that it seemed long. At the end, before she left, she told me that I should tell my mom that she could wear her ring. I had no idea what she was talking about, but I told her I would pass on the message. The next morning, I woke up and went to the kitchen where my mom and grandparents were having their morning coffee. My grandparents lived with us at the time. I told them I'd seen great-grandma last night. They, of course, did not believe me. I then told my mom that I had a message for her and told her about the ring. My mom and grandparents fell very quiet and asked me how I knew about the ring. I insisted that great-grandma had told me she could wear it, but that I did not know what ring she was talking about, as I was not given that detail. Well, my family was then convinced I had seen my great-grandma and explained why. Her diamond engagement ring was left to my mom, but knowing I might recognize it, she was afraid to wear it and upset me, or to even tell me she had had it. To this day, no one doubts that I saw her that night, and I was no longer depressed or sad. I still missed her, but I realized that she had been suffering and was now free. Next story. When I was 22, my 14-year-old brother very unexpectedly took his own life. We had been very close, talking on the phone most nights, to the point of running up my parents' long-distance bill, no cell phones. My son was 7 months old at the time, now almost 21. Their personalities and mannerisms have always been very similar, even though my son never really knew his uncle, so it is not imitation. Due to this, I think, whenever I dreamt of my brother in the years after his death, I always saw him at the age my son was at the time. When he was about 6, I started having a recurring dream of my brother. I was standing in the kitchen of my childhood home, and my child-aged brother appeared at the other end of the room, large country kitchen. Knowing he was gone and still feeling guilty that I had not foreseen and stopped his suicide, I would always say, "I'm sorry," and which point my brother would disappear. I would always be disappointed that there was not more time, as I truly felt even then that he was visiting me. The dreams were far more vivid than normal, and I always remembered them clearly. This happened many, many times. Finally, the dream came again, and remembering the outcome of all the others, I decided to stay silent and wait to see if he had anything to say. He waited a few seconds, I guess to see if I would say it again. Then he ran to me, put his arms around my neck and gave me a hug. I felt an overwhelming sense of love and the feeling that he wanted me to stop blaming myself. The dream ended there, and I never had it again. I was finally able to start healing and stop blaming myself. I still have days where I think I should have been able to stop what happened, but it no longer cripples me like it once did. For those of you out there considering suicide, please don't do that to your family. It is by far the worst thing I've ever experienced, and I can only imagine how much worse it is for my parents, especially my mom, who found him and did CPR, knowing it was too late already. I was 13 years old when this happened, but a little backstory on the situation is that my dad loved whistling, and he was really good at it. Anyways, it was around 1 a.m. one night, and I heard whistling in the hall, and it was a tune that I'd never heard my dad whistle. I got up to use the bathroom that was in between my room and my parents' bedroom, but when I opened the door, the whistling stopped. I walk over to my parents' door, and I hear my dad clearly snoring away. Needless to say, I was spooked and ran back to my room without even going to the bathroom. I believed it was all hooey, and the thing that convinced me that there is some truth to it was, I was 18, sitting on a couch watching some TV. Parents were out for the night, and it was just me and my dog at home. In the middle of the show, I believe it was Star Trek, my dog jumps from the couch and stands by the stairs, growling. I walk over to investigate and found nothing. I told the dog he was crazy and ushered him back to the couch, where I continued to watch the show. My dog sat next to me, ears perked up, just staring at the base of the stairs, occasionally growling. Some commercials came on, and I decided to go look again. I walked over to the base of the stairs, looking up, and saw nothing. As I turned around, the dog went from growl to full-on barking. Not just woof woof, but the alerting bark, half howling. I turned back around, expecting to see my parents, but it was not my parents. It was at best what I can describe as a transparent woman with a dress on. I ran from the base of the stairs, the dog now using his threat growl with alert barking. I was trying to control my panic when I heard a female voice say my name. I froze and waited for a moment, and a female voice again said my name. I had no idea what to do. After a brief moment, the dog stopped barking or growling altogether and came over to me. I reluctantly moved toward the base of the stairs, again fully expecting to see something, but whatever it was gone. I will never forget that day. That was the day I realized there is something more going on than I realized. Did the dog see something paranormal? Certainly possible. Maybe he heard something in the attic, like a woodland critter or something. But either way, possible. I was watching the paranormal show Ghost Adventures on TV and was quite getting into it. I am quite a skeptical, neither believing in ghosts or not, but watching out of curiosity. I was trying to figure out if the show was fake or not, but ended up getting into it. I remember lying in bed watching a part which was quite intense. As I was watching, the curtain, which was next to me on my right side, just flew out suddenly. It really went up in the air as if someone had pulled it. This has never happened before. The windows were shut, and even if there was wind, there was no way a gust of wind could have blown them that way. I changed the channel and just lay there frozen, absolutely scared shitless, thinking, did that really happen? I know this sounds unbelievable and have hardly told anyone except a good friend when drunk and not sure he believed me. It's just weird that I was watching a program about the paranormal and that happens. It's almost like something was trying to freak me out. My grandma, let's call her Gran, passed away a few years ago. My grandpa found someone and quickly got together and remarried. My dad told me about this dream my grandma's good friend had. Gran visited her and said they would spend the day together. They did and talked a lot, and the friend asked Gran what she thought of my grandpa's new wife. Gran said she liked her since she made him happy, and she mentioned along the lines of she had a son that died, but he doesn't know. After the day was over, Gran said she had to go and told friend not to be sad because everything was okay. Then I suppose she woke up with all these vivid memories. Thing is, the friend didn't know about the son Gran mentioned, and neither did my grandpa. No one ever told her, and she learned through a dream, and it was accurate. Since then, I don't know how to feel about ghosts and stuff like that. Also, makes me worry about the man my little sister had seen in the shadows multiple times, in different places, and apparently, the same man. I don't believe in ghosts, ghouls, specters, or spooks. There's always a logical explanation. That being said, I'm working with a friend on a new paranormal TV show. Yeah, I don't believe in ghosts, but I believe in a paycheck and residuals. We shot a pilot at a very notorious house in my city. The house itself gave me the creeps, but outside of some unexplained noises, nothing really to phone home about. We did have access to this box with LED lights that would supposedly light up whenever a ghost was in the same room. Sometimes I'd ask a question, sometimes the box would light up, sometimes it would happen multiple times in a row, but I don't put a lot of stock in light-up boxes. One of the mediums claimed there were portals in the basement, and one was so ancient and powerful, he was only able to shrink it and not close it all the way. Oh, and a ghost cat jumped out of one of the portals. Apparently, as he says this, you can hear something like a cat meow on one of our EVP recorders. We edit everything together, start pitching it to the networks. One of the networks is intrigued. They give us a bit of money to shoot another episode. This time, we did 2 nights in another notoriously haunted house lived in by a supposed serial killer. Bodies buried in the basement and everything. Now, this house was nothing special. I walked in, didn't feel creeped out at all. The vibe was normal as opposed to the first house. But as night progressed, things got strange. One of the first nights, we went and had ourselves an EVP session in the master bedroom. That, rumor had it, was a performance stage or altar once upon a time. We're going at it for about an hour and not getting a whole lot, but something starts coming through, talking about demons. Yeah, sure, demons. We have a go at that for a bit, but again, don't have much success. Now, how this particular piece of equipment works is it scans every radio frequency it can in like half-a-second intervals, and supposedly the ghosts can pick out specific words in these super quick intervals to communicate with us. Really, it just sounds a lot like very fast talking with feedback and white noise. It's hard to get anything out of it. Just as we're getting ready to shut it down, something cuts through clear as day and is speaking in Spanish. The voice stops, and it goes back to its voices or white noise feedback loop. Only one of the guys in the room spoke Spanish, and he translated it as, "Stop getting in my way. Evil will prevail. Evil will rise. Stop getting in my way." We shut it down for the night. The next day, the believers in the group keep getting demon vibes all day. I believe in the power of suggestion is a powerful thing, but whatever. We decide that we're going to do another session in the dining room that night and see if we can get the demon to play ball. We're in the dining room, starting up the session. This time, we're using a different EVP box, and I'm not really quite sure how it works. Again, I guess the ghosts can use frequencies in the air and send them through this box to communicate with us. We also have these special cameras that are hooked up to iPads. They can detect different pressures and temperatures in the air, and they use their data to try to map out a figure. If it's doing its job, it makes a stick figure on the screen where it's detecting abnormal activity. This is where it gets interesting. Again, I am a non-believer. We begin the session. We make contact with the serial killer who lives in the house. We've apparently pissed him off, and he's going to unleash this demon on us that he's enslaved because he's trying to become a demon in the afterlife and won't free this demon until it teaches him how to do it. I know, bear with me. It's at this point, when he says he's going to unleash his demons on us, that I shit you not, a cold draft begins flowing around my ankles. I had never felt anything like it before in my life. I know that's one of the telltale signs of a ghost entering a room, but I never bought it. We were all sitting around this table, and I just feel this coldness drift in around my ankles. I can feel it nowhere else in my body but my ankles and below. I don't say anything as I don't want to spoil it. I get up out of my seat and go stand in the corner. I'm about a foot away from the wall. I'm standing there for a minute or so when I can't even explain it. I just know that there is something behind my left shoulder. I tell one of the guys with the special cameras to point it over my way. The camera begins to map out a figure that is approximately 8 feet tall, exactly where I felt it. I turn around and there's nothing there but coldness. Someone screams and I turn back around and they say something, just scratch their arm. Lo and behold, the camera is now tracking the figure standing over them. Things begin to escalate and people are starting to panic. Now, the dining room is right off the kitchen, and you can see directly into the kitchen from the dining room. As things continue to build in the dining room and come to a head, there's a loud pop and a flash from the kitchen area. No lights were on. About half of us saw it. I saw it out of the corner of my eye. We are starting to get pretty freaked out and end the session. I go into the kitchen to check the spot where the pop and flash happened. There's nothing there. No broken glass, no broken anything. It's just empty space. And the person who claimed to have gotten scratched on the arm, 3 scratches marked beginning to fade onto her arm. Quite a few very interesting things happened in that house. I don't know what I believe anymore, but I do believe that if anything extra normal does exist, we may have had a brush with it that weekend. So after experiencing all of this as a non-believer, now you're a maybe believer, at least agnostic, what else more would you need? Perhaps maybe the demon to come over with a Ouija board and a sandwich? I moved to my childhood home when I was about 2, so it's the only home I've ever known. That being said, there have been some weird things that have happened in my house. I'll share a few with you guys. Throughout the house, every family member has heard footsteps coming from parts of the house where no one was currently in. Just recently, New Year's Eve, we walked into the house and heard footsteps that sounded like people running above us. At night, we often hear people walking around despite everyone being in their rooms. Whenever you're in the house, you feel as if someone is watching you or standing directly behind you. In some cases, it feels as if someone is breathing directly behind you. I usually experience this when I'm in my room. I feel someone standing at the foot of my bed. It's incredibly unsettling. Activity usually increases when we renovate parts of the house. The most memorable instance occurred when we were renovating the kitchen, which hadn't been touched since we moved in. One night, my sister and mom were in the garage that we were using as a makeshift kitchen when our dog started acting odd. She was barking and staring down our driveway. My mom and sister walked up a few feet to see a black figure standing in the shadows. As they approached it, it ran into the house and slammed the door. I was in my room and heard the door close and went to investigate. I was greeted by my mom and sister freaking out, asking where the person was. We looked at the security cameras and saw footage of a black blur running in and the door closing behind it, but vanished without a trace. We split up and searched the house, making sure someone couldn't move from room to room but couldn't find anything. Those are just some of the things that have happened, but there's been a lot of activity over the years. There are so many that's hard to remember, however, some of the more memorable ones. As you read, the house has cameras, and we have a close friend who does all the wiring throughout the house. A few times, he's had to crawl into the crawl space above my sister's bedroom, and as he was crawling, he heard someone crawling behind him and breathing heavily. He also mentioned that during times that he was left alone in the house, usually when we go for dinner or to the mall, he's heard people open the front door, slam the door shut, move about in the kitchen. He was doing some wiring in the basement and overheard conversations. After he was done, he went upstairs and found the house empty, and we pulled into the driveway a few minutes later. He questioned everyone, asking if we briefly stepped out, but we confirmed that we just arrived since leaving. My mom also experienced something similar to this while in the basement putting away Christmas decorations, except she heard the footsteps move up onto the second floor, and not just in the kitchen. Other handymen have experienced similar situations, however the most unique ones happened to one of our close family friends or handyman. He was working on a gardening project with my mom, and she left him to go get more flowers from the garage. He kept working and was simply focused on finishing the project. He gets someone walk up behind him and, assuming it was my mom, started talking. After talking and not receiving a response, he felt a hand on his shoulder, and when he turned around, no one was there. He freaked out and went to the garage and found my mom there. My mom is a pretty spiritual person, but not really religious. One day she attempted to get the house blessed and see if she could get rid of whatever was in the house. After the cleansing was said and done, we didn't talk or think much about it. However, that night we went out, and a few minutes after leaving, my mom received a call from the alarm company that the fire alarm had been set off. We rushed home, panicking and thinking our house burned down, and discovering that the house was perfectly fine. We searched the house and discovered no trace of smoke or anything that could possibly be related to a fire. That night, we called the technician, and he came and inspected the system. He said that the alarm was triggered manually from inside of the house, and that there was only one panel in the house capable of doing that. He inspected the panel and found it working perfectly fine. But my mom took it as a warning that she shouldn't mess with whatever was in the house. Ever since that day, my mom ignores the ghosts, and when they act up, she tells them to shut up because she's trying to sleep, and if they keep disturbing her, she's going to start charging them rent. Well, there's clearly something in there that didn't want a lot of change, so rent is fine.